Hi, my name is Rick Cook. I'm your instructor for English 121, and this is a little video to introduce you to the class. Um, I have a couple goals with this video, and this is an outline of my goals that I'll be using to kind of organize it. You can find this outline in D2L. You can also find a letter that captures many of these same ideas, and then, of course, everything is in the syllabus. So my two goals for this first video are helping you determine, is this the right class with the right professor at the right time in your life? That's a really critical decision that you need to make, and it's not too late to make a different decision. I've worked with many students that this wasn't the right class, and I wasn't the right guy, and it wasn't the right time in their life. And the sooner you can figure that out, the better you will be. That said, for a whole bunch of students, I would say the vast majority of my students, this is the right class, and I am the right professor, and it is the right time. But let's make sure. I also want to go through D2L, Google Classroom, and something I call the Daily Sheet, which is a Google Doc that I use for all of my curriculum. So it's really the orientation to the nuts and bolts of the class and how you work inside of it. So first, is this the right class? The class is designed to offer you transferable skills. This isn't a hoop that you jump through or some required course that you have to do. While this is required for every degree at every school, it is not mandatory in the sense that college is not mandatory. And what you really need to realize is you're developing a skill that you will have to use after the class is done. So I always ask students, can you do this without me by the end of the class? Can you come up with college level content? Can you organize that content in ways that follow common expectations at the college level? Does your writing have appropriate style? And in college and in the world of academia, you need to be precise and concise. Um, Mechanics. Is the writing grammatically clean? Excuse me. Does it demonstrate enough variety to be successful at this level? It's very important to remember that your goal is to make sure you can do this without me by the end. So I'm very involved in early projects and less involved in later projects because it's supposed to be what you can do, and that these skills are expected at the next level. I always work with a student every couple of years following my class to make sure I am staying up to date on what college students need in terms of writing. And the writing requirements after first year comp have only increased in both uh, number and intensity and expectation of complexity. It's amazing how much students have to write. I was just following a nursing student who had to write regularly in physiology and healthy living and nursing 201. It was a constant exercise in writing, way more writing than my class when you look at the totality of that semester. So, can you do that after the class is always the big question. Is this the right class? Because I teach this class in a way that focuses on real writing. I'm not interested in fake writing. I'm not interested in writing that's for school. I'm interested in writing that is about the purpose of writing. Everybody writes to expose insights about a topic. Every real writer knows something in a way that they think the audience doesn't know. And that's the heart of all writing. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to have to expose about a topic things that the audience doesn't already know. And that's very different than most high school writing experiences. So make sure you want to do that to take my section. It's real writing in that it's an extended revision process. How strong can you make 3 writing projects with 8 weeks to work on them? Now, normally you have 16 weeks to work on these projects. The grades stay the same, the amount of work stays the same, the expectation stays the same. You just have half the amount of time. So that's pretty intense. And it's not what can I write the night before or the morning of. You're evaluated on a rubric that expects you to work on it for 8 weeks. That's 2 months. Therefore, it's extremely high standards. They don't get any higher. This is college, and I can't change that for you. In high school, we can change that. You can graduate high school with a 7th or 8th grade reading and writing level, and most people do. This is not that. The class presumes that you can already write in complete sentences and follow basic grammar rules. It presumes that you can read for information and that you can study models of writing and apply those lessons. It presumes you can organize a basic essay, and it presumes you can use technology to complete basic writing, reading, and researching tasks. If you don't feel like you can do those things or want more of an idea of what that means, reach out to me. I'd be happy to show you. In fact, if you feel like you want support in those things, I go above and beyond as a professor and I will give you support, but you have to have them to be successful in the class. Most students can't already write at a college level. And that makes total sense. You're paying to learn something. You're not paying just to get a stamp on a piece of paper. You're paying to learn something you can't already do. Having that in mind, think about what your early grades are going to be like and what your later grades are going to be like. Early on, they're not going to be great. Later on, they're going to be better. Thankfully, in my class, every essay can be rewritten and the grade replaces earlier grades. So if your essay starts off at a 2 point, but by the end of the class, after 8 weeks of work, you get that thing to a 4 point, it is a 4 point. It replaces the 2 point. Okay, am I the right professor? I am not for everybody. I've been told many times I'm a little bit of an acquired taste. In a face-to-face setting, I'm really loud. I'm not a meek and mild person. The way I approach this class is that I'm a writer that's donating my time to help less experienced writers because I like the experience. I want to be very clear. I am not a teacher. I can be a teacher. So I've worked full time for 10 years as a high school teacher. I worked for 10 years as a high school principal. I am not a teacher. I'm a college professor. To be a college professor takes 0 educational classes. If you take a history class, you're learning from a historian. If you take a chemistry class, you're learning from a chemist. If you take a writing class, you're learning from a writer. I really embody that. I'm not a teacher. I'm a writer that's going to help you write better. I believe that college is not for everyone. Just like roofing isn't, and just like plumbing isn't, and just like art isn't. I do believe everyone has the ability to develop the skills to be successful. They just don't all choose to do so. And making that move from high school is mandatory, I got to be there, to I'm in college and this is voluntary. You have to do that, and you got to do it as a writer. As a writer, I know that writing is never done. It's just due. I'm going to say that all the time, and you might as well hear it for the first time in the first video. That's about this idea that writing is about process. It's super messy. You got to throw a lot of stuff out. You got to talk a lot. You got to get feedback. And it's very, very hard to rush real writing. I believe those things, and the class is set up based on those beliefs. And if those kinds of things are things that drive you nuts, I would pick a different section. There are many, many sections. You don't have to pick mine. I am really not interested in prisoner writing. So as a former high school teacher and a high school principal, I know that high schools are a lot like prisons. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. You are given work that you have to do. We are legally obligated to teach you in high school. I am not legally obligated to teach you. I'm not interested in writing that people are forced to do. I often tell students, I rarely see good writing that happened just because it was assigned. If you're writing just because it's an assignment, it's a terrible experience. It feels awful. You hate it. And that's exactly what it feels like when I read it. I know you'll hear this again in the course, but Robert Frost said, "No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader." And what he meant is what you're feeling as you're writing is what I'm going to feel as I'm reading. And if you hate writing that thing the morning before and don't want to see it, that's what it feels like to read it. And I'm not interested in that. I've been around too long. I'm interested in people who want to write and want to learn to write. And in that way, my effort really matches yours. I go way above and beyond for students that are trying, and I do the absolute bare minimum if you're not. That's just the way it is. So what's the keys to success, particularly this summer? Summer is brutal. 8 credit hours. So you have 8 credit hours because this is a 4 credit class that's supposed to take 16 weeks, but it's taking 8 weeks, so it's doubled, right? So you're taking 8 credit hours with my class. It's 4 on your transcript, but you're taking it twice as fast. The college gives us some guidance. They say you should have 2 to 3 hours per credit hour. So that means this class will be 16 to 24 outside of class. So if we add 8 to that, man, I'm struggling to do the math. What is that? 24 to 32 hours a week on this class? I mean, obviously you're going to work daily, and you got to be ready for that. You got to think daily. Real writing takes enormous amounts of thinking. I mean, if you're doing this class right, you're thinking about writing when you're waiting in the line at McDonald's, or you are trying to fall asleep at night, or you are waiting for the next piece of equipment at the gym, or you're in a meeting where you're supposed to be listening to something else, or you're on the phone with your sister who's crying about her boyfriend for the 20th time, and you're zoning out because you're thinking about writing. That's what real writing is. To be successful, you need to get in that mindset. You got to ask questions, particularly in an online class. You should contact me often. You're paying for access to me. I give my cell phone so you can text me directly. If you don't want to do that, email me, but do not email D2L. Please email my cookar@mail.lcc.edu. That contact information is all over my materials. You'll see it a lot. Please email me not using D2L. It takes me a while to respond in D2L because it doesn't go right to my phone. It's a good idea if you want to be successful to cultivate some relationships with your peers. And I know that's hard in an online class, but I've had lots of online students meet outside of class. That's a great idea, or at least really interact with people in the online environment. Another key to success is being willing to throw out bad ideas. You have to throw out bad ideas. You have to take the time. Real writing is hard. And because it's hard, you have to go through some of the messy parts. It's a little bit like learning to ride a bike. Nobody jumps on a bike and rides right away. You have to crash. It's like learning how to shoot free throws. There's a lot of air balls. It's like learning to hit a golf ball. You don't hit it the first couple times, and it takes forever to get good at it. Writing is the same way. It literally is the product of guided practice, but you got to practice. Don't treat essays like an assignment. I already said this a little bit. That isn't real writing. Treat essays as an opportunity to tell the audience something that you really want them to know, and you're compelled to tell them. That's real writing. Okay, I'm going to go over the 2 places where we do a lot of work in the class. One is D2L, and the other one is Google Classroom. So I'll be skipping around to these things. I presume you know how to log into D2L. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here looking at the video. So here's D2L. I always use the announcement section to kind of give you weekly guidance of where we're going and what we're doing. And then everything can be found in the content section, which you can find over here. You can also find here under content. This is the daily sheet. Okay, so it's a great idea to actually bookmark this because I put all my curriculum on a single Google Doc. Instead of uploading stuff to D2L all the time and dealing with some of the problems there, I do use D2L for some things, but most things are found through this Google Doc. And because it's a summer class and it's short, I've actually laid out every day. So here's every day between now and August 2nd when the class is done. So the center has what you're doing and the links to it. You notice it's done about a week out, right? So I haven't made these links live yet, but I will. You can get, this is a ton of work, so don't worry about running out of work to do. And then the work also has points associated with it. So these points add up to 100. So you can think about this as percentages, right? So the letter reflection at the end of the class is 10 out of 100. So that's 10% of your final grade. All of these links are about reading something or watching something, or it'll lead to a Google form, which is some kind of quiz or test or something like that. All of my quizzes and tests are open book, and you can see them before you start doing the reading. So for instance, on Saturday, by midnight, by 11:59 on Saturday, you got to do this response. To do this response, you have to read all of these things. It's a good idea to look at the response first. So as you're reading, you can find this stuff, reading and watching. There's a lot of videos actually too. It also is over stuff in the welcome letter and also over stuff in the assignment explanation and some of these things. So your tasks are these bulleted points, and you work through these, and they're due by the day that it says it's due. It's a fast, hard class. Fitting all of this stuff into 8 weeks is pretty tough. You'll notice that there's a lot of reading and writing early, and then later on, it's more writing. Like the last essay, not a lot to read. There's videos and stuff that isn't in here yet. I want to make that point right now. We move through the class together. So it's not asynchronous and you can just blast through this because you've got a whole bunch of hours in 1 week. It's a process that we go through together, and you will not get stuff way ahead of when we're all working on it together. So just keep that in mind. It's not asynchronous. We're working through the class together. You have to interact with each other on the same things. So that's about timing and moving at the same pace. So this is the daily sheet. That's what I call it in D2L. That's what it's called. You can find it there. A couple different ways to find it. If you click on content, you can find it, or it'll always be over here in this content browser under course materials. Okay. The other thing in D2L is the discussions. Okay. So daily sheet, materials I give you is in D2L. Discussions is where you interact with other people, and those are almost all exclusively about your writing. Okay, so where we're at in the writing, getting feedback about your ideas, getting feedback about your outlines, getting feedback about your drafts. That all happens in the discussion section. And here you can find the essay one discussion, which is explained on the daily sheet and explained in the videos and the readings. There it is. Here's where you respond, and then you will eventually respond to each other. And all of that will be explained in the instructions. So D2L is where you find the daily sheet, which you can bookmark and get to without having to go into D2L if you want, and discussions. That's what's in D2L. The other place where we interact is in Google Classroom. And Google Classroom is where you will submit work to me. So this is where you'll turn in your essays. For essay 3, it's where you'll turn in an outline that I give you feedback on, and that's where comments and grades will be. You need to join Google Classroom with a Google code, and make sure you're using your LCC Google account. Oh, I also want to make that point about the daily sheet. You got to be using your LCC Google account. Make sure you're not using your personal account. You can tell that when you're in a Google Doc by up here. It should be mail.lcc.edu. Not a personal one. You should be able to switch in between them. Look at all these I have, my kids, other people that I've been on in this computer. But right here is my personal one, and there's my other work one. So make sure you're in your LCC Google account to access some of this stuff. So to get to the Google Classroom, you can go to this join code that'll lead you to it. When you click on that, it'll have you access. And it looks a little bit different on your end because you're a student accessing it, not a teacher, but you'll access something that looks roughly like this. And here you'll find all the big stuff. This is where you turn in essay 1, essay 2, essay 3, the final drafts of all of those, and a letter of reflection. All of these assignments are explained, but Google Classroom is where you turn it in, and you want to make these Google Docs. The reason we use Google Classroom and Google Docs is because it has far better interaction and collaboration functions than Word. That's why we use it exclusively. That's also why you used it in high school, besides the fact that it was free. So that's Google Classroom. I'm going to go over the syllabus and then some contact information. So the syllabus can be found on the daily sheet. It's going to get really repetitive because everything's on the daily sheet. So here's the syllabus, contact information. Read this because it's got stuff. You're actually quizzed on this, readings and videos and quizzes, why I give the quizzes. I want to talk about some of the big policies. So SA1 is worth 10%. SA2 is worth 10%. SA3 is worth 40%. So notice early on, the essays are worth less. SA3 is where you're supposed to really be able to demonstrate all your skills. You're going to get a lot of instruction on what these 3 essays are, but they're the same assignment. They're all expository essays. We start with a simple version in SA1. We get more complex for SA2. We get even more complex for SA3, but they're all expository essays. One thing that I love about this course is I'm teaching one thing really, really well. High school is a million things, and you cover it in a very shallow way. But college is narrow topics that you go really, really deep on. And that's what we're doing. We're going really, really deep on expository writing. These are all explained in the classroom. They also can be revised as many times as you want. So let's say on the first essay you get a 2-point and you're not happy with that. My comments explicitly tell you how to improve it. As long as you turn it in on time, you can revise it and submit it at the end of the class. I don't look at it again. I don't give you a bunch of feedback again. I'll talk to you about it. We can have interactions about it. You can email me a paragraph or a sentence, and we can meet in office hours, but I look at it once, you get your feedback, and you make it as strong as you can. The class is not grading me on my feedback. It's grading you on your skill level. So 60% of the class is the essays, 30% is the coursework, so reading and video response, and then the discussion boards and peer response. And then 10% is the reflection, due the last day of class. You'll find rubrics for all of these things in the daily sheet to give you a sense of what we're looking for. So you got to write about 4,000 words over 4 projects to pass the class. So that's essay 1, 2, 3, and the letter of reflection. That's how we get to the 4,000 words. And all steps of the writing process must be completed to earn points. Okay, so you can't put something in AI and then send it to me. It has to go through the process. We have to see the original expository question. We have to see an outline. We have to see drafts. I'm not interested in just getting drafts that I've never seen before. I won't take them. So make sure you're going through the process of real writing. Office hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3:30 to 4 p.m. No, that's wrong. I got to update this. That is not the office hours. I will send out another post with my updated office hours. And this is a rough outline of the class, but it's more appropriate to look at the daily sheet. But I wanted to hit those big policy aspects of the syllabus. Make sure you are submitting your essays on time, okay? Now, I want you to really think about this. You can revise these. So there's no reason not to submit something on time, right? And I mean every step of the process on time. If you submit it all on time, you can revise it. If you don't submit it on time, we're not revising, okay? You're not doing your end of the bargain. You're not participating in the way you're supposed to as someone who voluntarily is learning to write. You're not doing the process, so the process is done. Make sure you turn in something. Okay, even if it's poor, I can give you feedback and you can improve it by the end. So make sure you are turning in something. The other point I want to make is about the discussion boards. It's important that you're present, honest, respectful, and engaged. Okay, so we're going to disagree, and that's fine. Adults should be able to do that, particularly in academic settings. That's the heart of academia, actually. I actually am a very fierce defender of freedom of speech. As long as you are not being explicitly hurtful to other people in ways that aren't academically appropriate, all opinions are valued, and I mean that across the political spectrum. Of course, we're in an election year, so that makes it interesting. While politics isn't necessarily part of any of our curriculum, it inevitably comes up. I don't care. I care about you being honest, respectful, engaged, and present, because that's what academics do. At its heart, this class is about how to be an academic. You are an academic as a college student, and you're participating in academia. And how do you do that is largely a function of writing and the thinking and habits and expectations of writers in academic settings. And that's what this class is teaching you. That's what you're paying for. And if you're not getting it, you need to let me know. Contact information. I prefer texts. There's my cell phone number. If you need to identify yourself, please do. If it's just a question that because you're working, you don't necessarily have to, but it helps to say, this is so-and-so from 121. You can email me at this email address, which is my LCC Google email. There is also an LCC Outlook email, which is the same address without the word mail in there. I don't respond to that as fast, and I particularly don't respond fast to emails sent in D2L. It's a hard system to use, and I'm not there very often. I apologize for the length of the video, but I really want to make sure you're all in a good spot and starting off in the right spot. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I know enough about myself as a communicator that I know I'm not perfect. I always appreciate questions. Even if it's something I did say in the video, I'll redirect you to it. There are no stupid questions. There are only people who should have asked. So make sure you're not one of those people who should have, but rather somebody who takes advantage of all the tuition you're paying and communicates. I wish you the best of luck in this semester. We'll be talking often, and take a deep breath and get ready to learn more about writing than you ever have before. Peace.